Chapter 1. The Storm and the Stranger. The storm hit Crescent Ridge like a living thing, furious, relentless, and utterly unforgiving. Lyra Winters pressed her forehead against the rain-streaked window of her grandfather's cabin, watching the pine trees bend and thrash in the wind. Thunder rolled across the mountains, a deep growl that seemed to shake the foundation of the old structure. She'd been here 3 weeks now, hiding from a life that had shattered so completely she wasn't sure she'd ever find all the pieces. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of pretending the world doesn't exist beyond these mountains. She wrapped her cardigan tighter around her thin frame and turned away from the window. The fire in the stone hearth crackled weakly, struggling against the draft that whistled through the cabin's ancient bones. Her grandfather had died 6 months ago, leaving her this remote sanctuary in his will, a place she'd visited only twice as a child. Now it was her refuge, her hiding place from Marcus and his lies, from the wedding that never happened, from the pitying looks of everyone who'd watched her world implode. The lightning came first, a brilliant flash that turned the world white. Then the thunder, so close it rattled the dishes in the kitchen, and then, through the chaos of the storm, she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to wind or rain or thunder. A sound that made every primitive instinct in her body scream danger. A howl, not the distant, mournful cry of a coyote. This was deeper, more primal, a sound that carried pain and rage in equal measure. It cut through the storm like a blade, raising the hair on the back of her neck. Lyra's breath caught. She shouldn't go outside. Every rational thought told her to lock the doors, stoke the fire, and wait for morning. But something in that howl, something raw and desperate, called to a part of her she didn't recognize. Something's hurt out there. She grabbed her grandfather's heavy coat from the hook by the door and pulled on her rain boots. The flashlight felt solid in her palm as she stepped onto the covered porch. Rain hammered the wooden boards, creating a curtain between her and the forest beyond. This is insane, she whispered to herself. But her feet were already carrying her down the steps. The beam of her flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating sheets of rain and swaying branches. She followed an instinct she couldn't name, moving toward the tree line where the howl had originated. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she didn't stop. She found him at the edge of the clearing. At first, she thought it was a wolf, massive and dark, collapsed in the mud beneath an ancient oak. But as she drew closer, her flashlight revealing more detail, she realized this creature was too large, too wrong to be any wolf she'd seen in nature documentaries. Its fur was midnight black, matted with rain and something darker, blood. The creature's breathing came in ragged gasps, its massive ribcage heaving with effort. Lyra should have run. Every survival instinct screamed at her to back away, to return to the cabin and call. Who? There was no cell service this far into the mountains, no neighbors for miles. Instead, she knelt in the mud beside the creature. Easy, she whispered, though her voice shook. I'm not going to hurt you. The wolf's eyes opened and Lyra's world tilted. They weren't animal eyes. They were too intelligent, too aware, too human. Golden and luminous even in the dim beam of her flashlight, they fixed on her with an intensity that stole her breath. Pain flickered in those impossible eyes, but also recognition. As if he knew her. As if he'd been waiting for her. You're hurt, she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. She could see the wound now, a deep gash across the creature's shoulder, oozing dark blood. I don't know if I can help you. You're so big, and I don't know what you are. But the wolf made a sound, something between a whimper and a growl. Its eyes never left her face. Lyra made a decision that would change everything. Okay, I'm going to try to help you, but you have to trust me. Can you move? Can you make it to the cabin? She knew it was ridiculous, talking to an animal if that's what this was, as if it could understand her. But those eyes seemed to hold such intelligence that she couldn't help herself. The creature struggled to stand, its powerful legs shaking with effort. It was even larger than she'd realized, easily the size of a small bear. When it finally gained its feet, it stood nearly as tall as her shoulder. Lean on me, she said, positioning herself against its uninjured side. The rain had soaked through her coat, plastering her dark hair to her skull, but she barely noticed. All her focus narrowed to getting this impossible creature to safety. They moved slowly, painfully, through the storm. The wolf, if she could even call it that, limped heavily, its breath hot against her neck. Its weight was immense, and Lyra wasn't sure how she managed to support it. But somehow they made it up the porch steps and through the cabin door. The creature collapsed immediately on the woven rug in front of the fireplace, its sides heaving. In the warm glow of the fire, Lyra could see the full extent of its injuries. Deep claw marks raked across its shoulder and flank. Whatever had attacked it had wanted it dead. Who fights with claws in the modern world? She pushed the thought aside and moved with purpose, gathering her grandfather's first aid supplies, clean towels, and a bowl of warm water. Her hands shook as she knelt beside the creature again, but her voice remained steady. I'm going to clean your wounds. This might hurt. The golden eyes tracked her movements, never wavering. There was something in that gaze that made her chest ache, a loneliness that mirrored her own. A pain that went deeper than physical wounds. As she gently cleaned the blood from midnight black fur, Lyra Winters had no idea that she'd just saved the life of Cale Thornwood, Alpha, king of the northern packs, or that her mercy would set in motion a chain of events that would bind their fates together forever. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, beside the flickering fire, something ancient and inevitable had begun.
Chapter 2. The vigil Lyra worked through the night, her movements careful and deliberate as she tended to the creature's wounds. The gashes were too deep for an animal attack, too precise. They looked almost like knife wounds, if knives had curved edges like talons. What could do this? The wolf lay still under her ministrations, those unsettling golden eyes following her every move. She'd expected it to snap at her, to snarl or pull away when she applied the antiseptic her grandfather had kept in his extensive medical kit. Instead, it simply watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. You're very patient for something so wild, she murmured, pressing a clean bandage against the worst of the wounds. Her fingers brushed through wet fur, and she felt the creature's muscles tense beneath her touch. I don't know what you are. You're too big to be a wolf, too aware. The creature's ear flicked at her words, and Lyra could have sworn she saw understanding flash through those golden depths. I'm probably losing my mind, she continued, her voice soft in the firelit quiet. The storm outside had begun to ease, the thunder growing distant. Talking to you like you can understand me. But I've been alone for weeks now, so maybe I've finally cracked. She sat back on her heels, studying the bandages she'd managed to wrap around the creature's shoulder and torso. They wouldn't hold forever, not with a beast this size, but they'd have to do until morning. If it survived until morning, the thought sent an unexpected pang through her chest. You can't die, she whispered, surprised by the fierceness in her own voice. I didn't drag you through a storm just to lose you to these wounds. So you have to fight, okay? You have to want to live. The wolf's eyes closed slowly, then opened again, a deliberate blink that felt almost like agreement. Its breathing had steadied, the ragged gasps from earlier evening out into something more rhythmic. Lyra retrieved a blanket from the bedroom and draped it over the creature's hindquarters, trying to preserve its body heat. Then she settled onto the floor beside it, her back against the stone hearth, close enough to monitor its breathing, but not so close that she'd startle it if it woke suddenly. I came here to escape, she found herself saying, staring into the dying embers of the fire. From a life that wasn't mine anymore. From a man who turned out to be a stranger wearing a familiar face. The wolf's breathing remained steady, but one ear swiveled toward her, as if listening. Marcus proposed at Christmas. Everyone said we were perfect together, the wedding planner and the architect. We'd build beautiful lives for other people, then come home and build one for ourselves. Her laugh was bitter, except he was building one with someone else too. His assistant. How cliché is that? She drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. I found out 3 weeks before the wedding. Text messages on his phone while he was in the shower. I confronted him, and you know what he said. Her voice cracked. He said she made him feel alive. That I was too serious, too careful, too safe. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with old pain. So I called off the wedding, returned the gifts, and listened to everyone tell me I was making a mistake, that all men stray, that I should forgive him. She shook her head. but I couldn't. I couldn't spend my life wondering if safe was just another word for unlovable. She glanced at the creature, half expecting it to be asleep. Instead, those golden eyes were fixed on her face with such focused attention that her breath caught. "You're a good listener," she said softly, managing a small smile. "Better than my therapist." The wolf made a low sound in its throat, not quite a growl, more like a rumble of acknowledgement. The sound vibrated through the floorboards, resonating in her chest. Lyra reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement. Her fingers hovered over the creature's massive head for a heartbeat, before she let them settle gently into the thick fur between its ears. The wolf went very still. "Is this okay?" She whispered Dot in response. The creature shifted slightly, pressing its head more firmly into her touch. The gesture was so trusting, so unexpected, that Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. She stroked the soft fur, marveling at the warmth radiating from the creature despite its injuries. This close, she could see faint scars beneath the black-coated wounds that had healed long ago. Whatever this creature was, it was a survivor. "We're both running from something, aren't we?" she said quietly. "Both hiding in these mountains from a world that hurt us." The wolf's eyes drifted closed, but Lyra could feel it leaning into her touch, drawing comfort from the contact. Something in her chest loosened a knot of loneliness she'd been carrying for months. She wasn't sure when she fell asleep. One moment she was sitting with her hand buried in midnight fur, listening to the creature's steady breathing. The next, she was drifting in and out of dreams, where golden eyes watched her from the shadows, and a voice she almost recognized called her name. When she woke with a start, gray dawn light was filtering through the windows. The wolf was gone. Lyra shot to her feet, her heart hammering. The blanket lay crumpled on the floor. The bandages she'd so carefully applied were scattered across the rug, stained with dried blood but no longer attached to anything. "No," she breathed, spinning in a circle. No. But the cabin was empty. The front door stood slightly ajar, as if something large had nudged it open. She ran to the door and flung it wide, searching the clearing beyond. Morning mist clung to the ground, turning the world soft and dreamlike. There was no sign of the creature. No massive paw prints in the mud. No trail of blood leading into the forest. Nothing but silence and the gentle drip of water from rain-soaked trees. "Where did you go?" she whispered to the empty air. A branch snapped in the tree line, and Lyra's breath caught. For just a moment, she thought she saw a shadow moving between the pines, something large and dark that watched her with eyes she couldn't see but could somehow feel. Then it was gone. Lyra stood on the porch for a long time, staring at the forest, wondering if she'd imagined the entire night. But when she returned inside, the evidence remained: the bloody bandages, the medical supplies scattered across the floor, the faint imprint in the rug where something massive had lain dotted on the mantel, placed carefully beside her grandfather's old pocket watch, was something that hadn't been there before. A single black feather, impossibly large. Gleaming like oil in the morning light, Lyra picked it up with trembling fingers, feeling the weight of it, the realness of it. Whatever she'd saved last night, it had left her a gift, and somehow she knew with absolute certainty that it would return. Chapter 3. The Man in the Woods. 3 days passed, and Lyra found herself watching the tree line more than she cared to admit. She told herself she was being ridiculous. The creature, the wolf, or whatever it had been, was probably miles away by now, healed enough to return to wherever it came from. Wild things didn't linger near humans. They took what they needed and disappeared back into the wilderness, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched that started the morning after the storm. She'd been collecting firewood from the shed when the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She turned quickly, scanning the forest, but saw nothing except swaying pines and dappled sunlight. Still, the sensation persisted, a presence hovering just beyond her sight dot by the third day. She'd almost convinced herself it was paranoia born from isolation. Then she saw him. Lyra was sitting on the porch steps with her morning coffee, wrapped in her grandfather's old quilt, when movement caught her eye. A man emerged from the forest path, tall and broad-shouldered, moving with a predator's grace. He wore dark jeans and a flannel shirt that stretched across his chest. The sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle, but it was his face that stopped her breath. Sharp angles and strong features, with a jawline that could cut glass. Dark hair fell across his forehead in waves that looked perpetually windswept. And his eyes, even from a distance, she could see they were an unusual color. Light and piercing golden Lyra, single quotes, as coffee mug slipped from her fingers. Shattering on the wooden steps, the man stopped at the edge of the clearing, his gaze locking with hers across the space between them. For a long moment, neither moved. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs, her mind racing with impossible connections. Those eyes. I know those eyes. I didn't mean to startle you, he called out, his voice deep and rough, like gravel smoothed by water. He held up his hands in a gesture of peace. I was hiking in the area and got turned around. Saw your cabin and hoped you might have a phone I could use. It was a lie. Lyra knew it was a lie the same way she knew her own name. This man hadn't gotten lost. He'd come here deliberately for her. But why? There's no cell service this far out, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. She didn't stand, didn't invite him closer. Nearest town is Crescent Ridge, about 12 miles east. 12 miles. He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. Even in the morning light, they seemed to glow with an inner warmth. That's quite a walk. Better start now then, Lyra said, lifting her chin. Daylight's burning. Something flickered across his features, surprise, maybe, or amusement. He took a step forward and Lyra tensed. You're afraid of me, he observed, tilting his head slightly. The gesture was so familiar it made her chest ache. She'd seen the wolf do the same thing. I'm cautious of strange men who appear out of nowhere claiming to be lost, she corrected. There's a difference, fair enough. He took another step, moving with that same fluid grace. Now that he was closer, she could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the tightness around his mouth that spoke of pain carefully concealed. But I'm not a threat to you, Lyra. Her blood ran cold. How do you know my name? He stopped, seeming to realize his mistake. A muscle in his jaw ticked. Your mailbox. At the end of the drive. Another lie. The mailbox bore her grandfather's name, Henry Winters, not hers. Lyra stood slowly, her hand moving to the pocket of her cardigan where she'd transferred her grandfather's small pocket knife days ago. The man tracked the movement, and something in his expression softened. Please, he said, and the word seemed to cost him something. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to thank you. Thank me? Her fingers closed around the knife handle. For what? For saving my life. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Lyra's mind raced, trying to reconcile the impossible. The massive wolf with its midnight fur and golden eyes. This man with his careful movements and the same impossible golden gaze. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. But even to her own ears, the denial sounded weak. He moved again, this time reaching for the collar of his flannel shirt. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled it aside to reveal his shoulder. Even from where she stood, Lyra could see the bandages stark white against tanned skin. The same bandages she'd applied 3 nights ago? You do, he said softly. You found me during the storm, brought me inside, tended to wounds that should have killed me. His hand dropped back to his side. You saved me, Lyra Winters, and I don't take that lightly. Her legs felt weak. She sank back onto the porch steps, her mind struggling to process what he was telling her. That's not possible. You're a man. The thing I found was not entirely a man, he finished. Not entirely a Wolf either. Something in between. Something your world stopped believing in centuries ago. A werewolf. The word tasted absurd on her tongue. You're telling me you're a werewolf? Not exactly. He moved closer, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps. Up close, she could see the fine scars that traced his neck and disappeared beneath his collar. A roadmap of violence survived. The correct term is shifter. And yes, before you ask, I'm very real. Lyra laughed, the sound brittle and slightly hysterical. This is insane. I'm having a breakdown. That's what this is. Too much isolation, too much stress, and now I'm hallucinating strange men who claim to be, give me your hand. What? He extended his own hand, palm up. Give me your hand. Let me prove it to you. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to run inside and lock the door. But curiosity, that same damned curiosity that had driven her into the storm, won out. Slowly, she reached forward and placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up her arm. It wasn't painful, exactly, but it was intense, a shock of recognition that went soul deep. Lyra gasped, trying to pull back, but his fingers closed gently around hers. Feel that? He asked, his voice rough. That's not normal. That's not something that happens between strangers. She did feel it, a warmth spreading from the point of contact, racing through her veins like liquid sunlight. And underneath it, something else, a sense of knowing. As if some ancient part of her recognized him on a level that bypassed logic entirely. What is this? She breathed, his jaw clenched, and she saw conflict flash through those golden eyes. Something I didn't expect. Something that complicates everything. He released her hand and stepped back, running his fingers through his dark hair in a gesture of frustration. My name is Cale Thornwood, and I came here to thank you, to make sure you were safe and then to leave. But now, he broke off, shaking his head. Now I'm not sure I can. Why not? He met her gaze again, and the raw honesty in his expression stole her breath. Because you're not just the woman who saved my life, he said quietly. You're something much more dangerous than that. And if my enemies find out about you, they'll use you to destroy me. Lyra's throat went dry. What are you talking about? What enemies? The ones who gave me these wounds? His hand moved to his injured shoulder. The ones who want me dead. And they won't stop until they finish what they started. Before she could respond, Cale's entire body went rigid. His head snapped toward the forest, nostrils flaring. When he looked back at her, fear flashed through his eyes, the first real emotion she'd seen break through his careful control. Get it inside, he ordered, his voice dropping to a growl that raised every hair on her body. Now, lock the doors and don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Cale, what? They're here. Chapter 4. The hunt Lyra's survival instincts finally kicked in. She scrambled to her feet and lunged for the cabin door, but Cale was faster. He moved with inhuman speed, placing himself between her and the forest, his body a wall of protection. How many? She whispered, her hand on the door handle. 3. His voice had changed, becoming something deeper, more primal. Maybe 4. They're trying to mask their scent, but I know they're out there. Lyra's mind raced. 3 days ago, she would have laughed at the absurdity of this situation. Now, with Cale standing guard and the forest suddenly feeling hostile, every nerve in her body screamed danger. What do they want? Me. He glanced back at her, and his eyes had changed. They glowed brighter now, catching the light like a cat's. But they'll kill you just for being near me. You're a witness. A liability. The casual way he said it, as if her death was an inevitable consequence, sent ice through her veins. Get inside, he repeated, softer this time. There's a root cellar, isn't there? Behind the kitchen pantry. I can smell the earth and old wood. She stared at him. How do you know? Your grandfather was a smart man. All the old cabins in these mountains have root cellars. Safe rooms. His attention snapped back to the tree line. Go there. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. What about you? Something flickered across his face, surprise that she'd ask, maybe, or something softer. I'll handle them. You're injured. The words came out before she could stop them. You can barely move without pain. I see it in the way you hold yourself. His jaw tightened. I'll manage. Kale, a howl split the air, raising every hair on Lyra's body. It was answered by another, then another, a chorus of hunting calls that spoke of blood and violence. They were closer now, circling the cabin. Kale's entire body tensed. When he spoke again, his voice held barely contained rage. Inside. No, that's not a request. This time, Lyra obeyed. She slipped through the door, but didn't close it, couldn't close it. Instead, she watched through the gap as Kale stood alone on her porch. Facing the forest, the first wolf emerged from the shadows. Dotted was smaller than Kale had been in his wolf form, but still massive gray and scarred, with eyes that burned amber in the morning light. Then came a second, rust-colored and lean. A third materialized from a different angle, this one nearly white. They moved in perfect coordination. Predators who'd hunted together before. Kale didn't move. He simply watched them approach, his posture deceptively relaxed. But Lyra could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands had curled into fists. Thornwood. The voice came from the gray wolf, but it wasn't an animal's growl. The word was clear, human, impossible. You're harder to kill than we expected. Lyra's breath caught. The wolf had spoken, Darius. Kale's tone was flat, emotionless. I should have known Marcus would send you. He always did prefer letting others do his dirty work. The gray wolf Darius circled closer. The Alpha King sends his regards. He would have come himself, but apparently you're not worth his time anymore. Is that what he's calling himself now? Kale's laugh was bitter. Tell me, does the pack know he murdered his way to that title? Or are they still believing his lies? The rust-colored wolf snarled, but Darius silenced it with a sharp bark. You're in no position to make accusations, Exile. You lost your right to speak on pack matters when you betrayed us. I never betrayed the pack. Kale's voice dropped to something dangerous. I betrayed a tyrant. There's a difference. Enough talk. The white wolf's voice was female, cold as winter ice. You know why we're here. Make this easy on yourself. When have I ever made anything easy? It happened so fast that Lyra almost missed it. One moment, Kale was standing still. The next, his body blurred and changed bones, cracking and reforming, his form expanding and shifting until the man was gone and the massive black wolf stood in his place. The transformation took seconds. Impossible, beautiful, terrifying seconds. The three wolves attacked as one. Lyra clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle her scream as they collided in a fury of teeth and claws. Kale was larger, stronger, but he was outnumbered and injured. The bandages she'd wrapped around his shoulder tore away as he twisted to avoid. Darius's snapping jaws. Blood splattered across the porch boards. She should run to the cellar like he'd told her. She should hide and pray he survived. But her feet remained rooted to the spot, her eyes locked on the brutal dance of violence unfolding before her. Kale fought like something ancient and terrible, using his size to his advantage. He caught the rust-colored wolf by the throat and flung it aside, sending it crashing into a tree. But the white wolf darted in, raking claws across his already injured shoulder, reopening the wounds. Lyra saw him stumble. No dot. She didn't think. Couldn't think. Her hand closed around the cast iron skillet hanging beside the door her. Grandfather's old camping cookware. Heavy, solid. She burst onto the porch just as Darius lunged for Kale's exposed throat. Skillet connected with the gray wolf's skull with a resounding clang that echoed through the clearing. Darius yelped and stumbled sideways, shaking his head in confusion. All four wolves froze, turning to stare at Lyra as she stood there in her cardigan and jeans, wielding a skillet like a medieval weapon, her chest heaving with adrenaline. "Get away from him," she heard herself say, her voice shaking but fierce. The white wolf laughed, actually laughed, a sound that came out as huffing barks. "The human thinks she can fight us? This is Rich. She's mine." Kale's growl came from deep in his chest, protective and possessive in equal measure. He positioned himself between Lyra and the other wolves, even as blood dripped from his reopened wounds. "Touch her, and I'll tear out your throats. Yours?" Darius's amber eyes narrowed, flicking between Kale and Lyra with sudden interest. "Well, this changes things." The three wolves exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. When they looked back, their postures had shifted from aggressive to calculating. "Marcus will want to know about this," the white wolf said softly. "A human who carries the exile's scent? Who risks herself to protect him?" "No." Kale's voice was desperate now, the first time Lyra had heard real fear in it. "She's nothing. Just a woman who showed kindness to an injured animal. Leave her out of this." "Oh, I don't think so." Darius tilted his head, studying Lyra with those two intelligent eyes. "I think she's much more than that. I think she's leverage." Before Kale could react, the rust-colored wolf lunged not at him, but at Lyra. She swung the skillet again, but the wolf was faster, dodging her clumsy attack. She felt jaws close around her arm, not biting down but holding, and then she was being dragged off the porch. Kale's roar shook the trees. He threw himself at the wolf holding her, a black storm of fury. The impact sent all three of them tumbling across the muddy ground. Lyra's arm was released, and she scrambled backward, her heart in her throat. "Run!" Kale's human voice cut through his wolf form, distorted but clear. "Lyra, run!" But she wouldn't. Not when he was bleeding because of her. Not when three wolves were circling him again, preparing for a killing blow. Her hand found a fallen branch, thick and solid. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. "I said," she gritted out, gripping the branch with both hands. "Get away from him." This time, all four wolves stopped and stared at her. And in that moment of shocked silence, Lyra Winters realized that her quiet, safe life had ended the moment she'd walked into that storm. There was no going back now. Chapter 5. Blood Oath. Darius was the first to break the silence, his amber eyes gleaming with something between amusement and respect. "Brave," he said, his wolf's voice rumbling through the clearing. "Foolish but brave. Marcus will definitely want to meet you." "Over my dead body," Kale snarled, blood dripping from his muzzle. "That can be arranged." The white wolf began circling again, but slower now, more cautious. They'd underestimated both Kale's strength and Lyra's determination. Lyra's arms shook from holding the branch, but she kept her stance wide, her jaw set. She had no idea how to fight wolves, supernatural or otherwise, but she'd watched enough nature documentaries to know you never showed fear to predators. Fake it until you make it, Lyra, or until they rip out your throat. "Here's what's going to happen," Darius said, his attention fixed on Kale. "You're going to come with us peacefully. Face Marcus like the alpha you used to be. The human stays here, unharmed. You have my word. Your word means nothing." Kale's hackles rose, making him look even more massive. "The moment I leave with you, you'll come back for her. Then what do you propose? You can't protect her forever. You're injured, outnumbered, and the pack knows where you are now. Darius sat back on his haunches, a mockery of casual conversation. Face it, Thornwood. You've already lost. Lyra saw Kale's body tense, preparing for another attack one he might not survive. Before he could move, she stepped forward, placing herself partially in front of him. Wait, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. You said Marcus wants to meet me. Why? The three wolves exchanged glances. The rust-colored one spoke for the first time, his voice younger, less certain. Because if you're important to him, you're a weakness we can exploit. Shut up, Reed, Darius snapped. Then to Lyra, the dynamics between an alpha and his attachment are complicated. Suffice it to say, Marcus would find your existence very interesting. His attachment, Lyra repeated slowly. She glanced down at Kale's wolf form, seeing the tension in every line of his body. What does that mean? It means, the white wolf purred, that our dear exile has formed a bond with you. Whether he admits it or not, we can smell it on both of you, his scent on your skin, your scent in his blood. You saved his life, human. In our world, that creates ties. Lyra's mind raced. She thought about the electric shock when they touched, the way her heart had recognized him before her mind caught up, the absolute certainty that she couldn't let him die. Ties. What if I made a deal with you? She heard herself say. Lyra, no. Kale's protest came out as a growl, but she ignored him. You want him to face Marcus? Fine. But not as a prisoner. Not weakened and bleeding. She lowered the branch slightly, though her grip remained tight. Give him time to heal. 1 week. Then he'll go to Marcus willingly, and I'll come too. Absolutely not. Kale shifted back to human form in a blur of motion, not bothering with modesty as he stood naked and furious before her. I won't let you anywhere near that bastard. Lyra kept her eyes firmly on his face, ignoring the heat creeping up her neck. It's not your decision. The hell it isn't. Interesting. Darius interrupted, his form also shifting until a lean, scarred man stood in the gray wolf's place. He was older than Lyra expected, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that had seen too much violence. You'd offer yourself as insurance for his cooperation? I'm offering a fair exchange, Lyra corrected. You get what you want, Kale, facing Marcus. Marcus gets what he apparently wants me. And Kale gets a chance to heal and prepare instead of bleeding out in my front yard. You don't understand what you're agreeing to, Kale said, his voice rough with emotion. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. His golden eyes blazed with fear and fury. Marcus will hurt you to get to me. He'll use you, break you, and enjoy every second of it. Then you'll stop him. She met his gaze steadily, seeing past the anger to the desperation underneath. You said I saved your life. Now let me save it again. For a long moment, they stood frozen, her small frame dwarfed by his hands gentle despite their trembling. Both of them caught in a moment that felt suspended outside of time. 1 week, Darius said finally. You have 1 week to heal, Thornwood. Then you both come to Blackamoor territory. If you run, if you break this agreement, we hunt you both down. And the human dies first, slowly, while you watch. Understood? Kale's jaw clenched so hard, Lyra heard his teeth grind. But he nodded once, sharply. Good. Darius pulled on the clothes he had apparently stashed nearby before shifting a calculated move that spoke of planning and patience. The other 2 wolves followed suit, the white wolf becoming a tall, angular woman with ice blonde hair, and Reed transforming into a gangly young man who couldn't be more than 20. 7 days, Darius repeated, his eyes boring into Kale's. Don't make us come looking for you. They disappeared into the forest as quickly as they'd come. leaving Lyra and Kale alone in the bloody clearing. The moment they were gone, Kale's knees buckled. Lyra caught him or tried to his weight was too much, and they both went down hard on the porch steps. He was bleeding again, the wounds on his shoulder and side weeping fresh blood. "You idiot," she gasped, trying to support his weight. "You beautiful, stubborn idiot. You're going to bleed out." "Worth it," he managed, his head lolling against her shoulder. "If it kept you safe, well, I'm not safe now, am I? Thanks to my own stupid mouth." She maneuvered him inside, half dragging, half carrying him to the couch. His bare skin was slick with blood and sweat, fever hot beneath her hands. "Should've let me die in the storm," he mumbled as she lowered him onto the cushions. "Would have been simpler." "Probably," Lyra agreed, grabbing towels and her grandfather's medical kit. Her hands shook as she began cleaning his wounds again, but her voice remained steady. "But I've never been very good at simple." She worked in silence for several minutes, reapplying pressure to the worst of the bleeding. Kale's eyes drifted closed, his breathing shallow. Fear clawed at her throat. "Don't you dare die on me now," she whispered fiercely. "Not after I just bartered my freedom for yours." His eyes opened, unfocused but aware. "Why? Why what? Why would you do that? Risk yourself? For someone you barely know?" Lyra's hands stilled on his bandages. It was a fair question. She should have run into the cellar. Should have let him handle his own problems. Should have done 1,000 things differently, but when she'd seen him surrounded, bleeding, facing death for the second time in 3 days, "I don't know," she admitted softly. "But when I thought they were going to kill you, something in me just broke. Like losing you would mean losing something essential. Something I didn't even know I needed until it was about to be taken away." Kale's hand found hers, his grip weak but deliberate. "That's the bond," he murmured. What they were talking about. "It's not just gratitude or attraction. It's something older, deeper. The ties," Lyra whispered. "Yeah." His thumb traced small circles on her palm, the gesture intimate and soothing despite everything. "In my world, when someone saves your life, when your souls recognize each other, it creates a connection that can't be broken. Even if we wanted to. Do you want to?" His golden eyes met hers, and the raw honesty in them stole her breath. "No," he said simply. "God help me, no." Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. She should pull away, maintain distance, protect herself from whatever this impossible thing was growing between them. Instead, she threaded her fingers through his and held on. "Then we have a week," she said quietly. "A week to figure out what this is, what we are, and how to survive what comes next." Kale's eyes drifted closed again, but this time a small smile curved his blood-stained lips. "1 week," he agreed. "With you. Almost makes the death sentence worth it." Chapter 6. Healing wounds. The fever came that night. Lyra woke to the sound of Kale thrashing on the couch, his body burning hot beneath the blankets she'd piled over him. His skin glistened with sweat, and incomprehensible words tumbled from his lips, names she didn't recognize. Please in a language that sounded ancient. "Kale." She pressed a cool cloth to his forehead, her heart racing. "Kale, can you hear me?" His eyes snapped open, but they didn't see her. They were wild, unfocused, glowing brighter than she'd ever seen them. "The children," he gasped, his hand shooting out to grip her wrist with surprising strength. "Have to save the children. Marcus will kill them. Kill them all. There are no children here. You're safe. You're in my cabin, remember?" But he wasn't hearing her. His body convulsed, and for a terrifying moment, she thought he might shift bones cracking beneath skin, the change beginning. "No," she said firmly, cupping his face with both hands. "Stay with me. Stay human. Kale, please. Her touch seemed to anchor him. The glow in his eyes dimmed slightly, and his breathing steadied. His gaze finally focused on her face. Lyra? His voice was raw, broken. You're still here. Where else would I be? She kept her hands on his face, feeling the fever burning beneath his skin. You're sick. The wounds might be infected, not infection. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. Silver, they laced their claws with silver. Poison to my kind. Lyra's blood ran cold. Silver, like the metal, burns us, slows healing. In large enough doses, he trailed off, but she understood. What do I do? How do I help you? Camp has to run its course. His eyes closed, exhaustion winning over consciousness. Just don't leave, please. I'm not going anywhere, she promised, stroking his sweat-dampened hair back from his forehead. I've got you. She stayed beside him through the night, changing cool compresses, monitoring his breathing, and listening to the fragments of his fever dreams. He spoke of battles and blood, of promises broken and thrones stolen. He called out for his sister, Elena, run, and begged forgiveness from someone named Thomas, and sometimes, in his quieter moments, he whispered her name like a prayer dot by dawn. The fever finally broke. Lyra had dozed off in the chair beside the couch, her head resting on the armrest when she felt gentle fingers brush her cheek. She jerked awake to find Cale watching her, his golden eyes clear and aware. You stayed, he said softly. Wonder in his voice, I told you I would. She sat up, wincing as her neck protested the awkward sleeping position. How do you feel? Like I've been hit by a truck, but alive. His gaze traveled over her face, lingering on the dark circles under her eyes. You should be resting, not watching over me. Someone had to make sure you didn't die in your sleep. She reached for his forehead, checking for fever. His skin was still warm, but no longer burning. You were talking. In your delirium. Something guarded slipped over his features. What did I say? Things that didn't make sense. Names, Elena, Thomas, something about children. She paused. And Marcus. You kept saying he'd kill them all. Cale's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief. Elena was my sister. Thomas was her mate. He swallowed hard. They had 2 children, twin boys, barely 6 years old when Marcus staged his coup. Lyra's chest constricted. What happened? I was Alpha King, he said quietly, and the words landed like stones in still water. Not just of one pack, but of all the northern territories. It was my birthright, passed down through generations of Thornwoods. I tried to lead with honor, to maintain the old laws that kept our kind hidden but safe. He shifted on the couch, wincing as the movement pulled at his injuries. Marcus was my second, my closest friend, or so I thought. He was charming, ambitious, everything a good leader should be. Cale's laugh was bitter. I was blind. Didn't see that he wanted my throne. That he'd been poisoning the pack against me for years. Calling me weak for refusing to expand our territory. For not allowing them to hunt humans when prey was scarce. Lyra's hand found his, offering silent support. He gripped it like a lifeline. The challenge came during the autumn gathering. In front of all the packs, he accused me of betraying our kind, of caring more for humans than for our own survival. He called for a blood duel the old way. Winner takes all. You fought him, Lyra breathed. I did. And I won. His eyes grew distant, haunted. But it didn't matter. He'd already turned too many against me. While we were fighting, his followers went after my family. Elena, Thomas, the twins. They said it was to ensure no rival bloodline could challenge Marcus's rule. Horror washed over Lyra, the children. I heard Elena scream from across the gathering grounds. By the time I reached their den, his voice broke. Thomas was already dead. Elena was dying. The twins were hidden in a crawl space beneath the floorboards, crying for their mother. Tears streamed down Lyra's face. Kale, I got them out. Ran with both boys in my arms while Marcus's pack hunted us through the forest. I took them to a human sanctuary, a place where orphan children are cared for. They were young enough that they didn't remember much. Young enough to pass as human if they never shifted. He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. I gave them a chance at a normal life. Then I became what Marcus called me, an exile. I've been running for 3 years, always one step ahead of the hunters he sends. I thought if I stayed away, stayed hidden, maybe he'd forget about me. Maybe the twins would be safe. But you can't run forever, Lyra said softly. No. He reached up with his free hand, cupping her cheek with such tenderness it made her heart ache. And now I've dragged you into this nightmare. You should hate me. I should, she agreed, leaning into his touch. But I don't, I can't. The bond, he murmured. It's getting stronger, isn't it? You feel it. She nodded. There was no point denying it. Every moment with him felt like coming home, like finding a missing piece of herself she'd never known was lost. It terrified her almost as much as it thrilled her. What does it mean? She asked. This bond. What happens if we give into it? Kale's thumb traced the curve of her jaw, his touch reverent. In my world, it means you're my mate. My fated one. The other half of my soul. He searched her eyes. It means that once we complete the bond, we're connected for life. Your heartbeat will echo in my chest. Your emotions will bleed into mine. If you die, a part of me dies too. That sounds terrifying. It is. It's also the most sacred thing in our culture. Some shifters search their entire lives for their mate and never find them. His voice dropped to a whisper. I never thought I'd find mine. Especially not a human. Is that a problem? That I'm human? It complicates things. You're fragile compared to us. You age. You can't heal the way we do. His hand trembled against her skin. But no, it's not a problem. You could be anything human, shifter, phi, and I'd still feel this pull toward you. Still want to protect you. Still need you like I need air. Lyra's breath hitched. The intensity of his words, the raw honesty, should have sent her running. Instead, she found herself leaning closer. I broke off my engagement 3 weeks ago, she said quietly. Came here to hide from a life that fell apart. I told myself I was done with men, done with trusting anyone, done with believing in fairy tales. And now? Now I'm sitting in a cabin with a werewolf king who's probably going to get me killed. And all I can think about is how much I want to kiss you. Kale's eyes widened, then darkened with heat. Lyra, tell me not to, she whispered, her lips inches from his. Tell me it's a bad idea. That I'm being reckless. It is a bad idea. You're being reckless. His hand slid to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. But I've never wanted anything more in my life. Their lips met softly at first tentative, exploring. Then Kale made a low sound in his throat and deepened the kiss, and Lyra felt the world tilt on its axis. Chapter 7. The quiet between storms, the kiss lasted forever and ended too soon. When they finally pulled apart, Lyra's heart was racing so fast she thought it might burst from her chest. Kale's forehead rested against hers, his breathing ragged, his eyes still closed as if savoring the moment. That was... He started. Reckless, Lyra finished, but she was smiling. Completely insane. Perfect, he corrected, opening his eyes. The gold in them seemed brighter, warmer, like sunlight through honey. That was perfect. She laughed softly, the sound shaky with emotion. You're still feverish. We should probably, if you say rest, I'm going to kiss you again. Would that be such a terrible thing? His smile was devastating. No, but you need sleep and I need to heal. We have 5 days left before. He trailed off, the reminder of their deadline casting a shadow over the moment. Lyra pulled back slightly, studying his face. The fever had left him pale, dark circles shadowing his eyes. But there was something else there too, a lightness that hadn't been present before. As if sharing his burden had lifted some of the weight he'd been carrying. Tell me about them, she said softly. Your nephews. What were their names? Cale's expression soft with memory and grief. Adrian and Ashton. Adrian was born first only by 3 minutes, but he never let Ash forget it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. He was the serious one, always watching, always thinking. Ash was fire impulsive, loud, full of laughter. They sound wonderful. They were everything. His voice roughened. Elena used to say they got the best parts of both their parents. Thomas's loyalty, her strength. They would have been incredible alphas someday. Would have been. Lyra frowned. But they're still alive, aren't they? You said you got them to safety. They're alive, but they can never be alphas. Not if they want to stay hidden, stay safe. He shifted on the couch, and this time Lyra helped him sit up more comfortably, propping pillows behind him. They're living as humans now. When they turn 18, they'll have to make a choice to press their vulve permanently or risk exposure. That's not fair, Lyra said fiercely. They shouldn't have to give up part of themselves because of Marcus's cruelty. No, they shouldn't. But that's the world we live in. He caught her hand again, seemingly unable to stop touching her. Which is why I can't let Marcus win. Why I can't let him use you against me. Then we don't let him. Lyra squeezed his fingers. We figure out a plan. We find a way to what? Cale's laugh was hollow. To defeat an alpha who commands 6 packs. Who has hundreds of shifters loyal to him? Lyra, I'm one wounded exile with a human mate who doesn't even know our world exists. The odds aren't exactly in our favor. Mate, Lyra repeated, the word feeling strange and right on her tongue. Is that what I am now? After one kiss. His gaze intensified. The bond doesn't need a kiss to exist. It's been there since the moment you touched me in the storm. The kiss just... He paused, searching for words. It acknowledged what we both already knew. What we both already felt. Lyra's heart hammered. And what do we feel? You tell me. He brought her hand to his chest, pressing her palm against his heart. She could feel it beating strong, steady, alive. What do you feel when you touch me? She closed her eyes, letting herself truly feel for the first time. The warmth of his skin beneath her hand. The way her own heartbeat seemed to synchronize with his. And underneath it all, something deeper. A golden thread connecting them, humming with energy and recognition. I feel. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. Like I've been waiting for you my whole life without knowing it. Like every choice, every heartbreak, every moment led me here. To this cabin. To that storm. To you. Cale's breath caught. Lyra, I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. But when I think about 5 days from now, about facing Marcus, the thing that terrifies me most isn't dying. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It's losing you before I figure out what this is. Before I get to really know you. For a long moment, Cale simply stared at her. Then he cupped her face with both hands, his touch gentle despite the calluses on his palms. Then let's make the most of the time we have, he said. Ask me anything. I'll give you whatever pieces of myself I can before this all goes to hell. So she did. They talked as morning light streamed through the cabin windows, painting everything gold. Kale told her about growing up in the pack, about the weight of expectations that came with being born to lead. He described the moment he first shifted, terrifying and exhilarating, his bones breaking and reforming under a full moon while his father watched with pride. He talked about the good parts, too. Pack runs through moonlit forests, the sense of belonging that came from being part of something larger than himself. The honor of protecting his people, of making decisions that kept them safe and thriving. I wasn't a perfect alpha, he admitted. I made mistakes, trusted the wrong people, let my friendship with Marcus blind me to his ambition. You were betrayed, Lyra said firmly. That's not the same as failing, isn't it? My sister died because I didn't see the threat right in front of me. Those boys lost everything because I was too naive to believe someone I called brother would murder innocent children. Lyra shifted closer until she was sitting on the edge of the couch beside him. You saved them. That's what matters. You gave them a future, even if it meant sacrificing your own. Some future. Growing up without their parents, without their pack, without even knowing what they truly are. They're alive, Kale, and someday, when it's safe, maybe you can tell them the truth. Tell them about their parents' bravery, about the uncle who loved them enough to let them go. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. You have a dangerous amount of faith in me. Maybe you need someone who does. He pulled her down against his chest, careful of his injuries, and pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Lyra let herself relax into his embrace, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. Tell me about you, he murmured into her hair. About the life you left behind? About this Marcus who hurt you? Lyra stiffened. That Marcus was just a regular human asshole? Doesn't seem very important compared to evil alpha kings. It's important because it hurt you, because it's part of what brought you here. His fingers stroked through her hair, soothing. You don't have to tell me, but I want to know. I want to know everything about you. So she told him about planning other people's perfect days while her own relationship crumbled, about finding those text messages and the way her world had shattered, about the whispers of the canceled wedding, the pitying looks from friends who told her she was making a mistake. I felt so stupid, she whispered, like I should have seen it coming. Should have known that someone like him wouldn't really want someone like me. Kale's arms tightened around her. Someone like you? Safe, boring, the kind of woman you settle for, not the kind you passion for. Lyra, he tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. You walked into a storm to save a dying wolf. You hit trained warriors with a frying pan. You bargained your life for strangers. There is nothing safe or boring about you. You're fierce and brave and so beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You barely know me. I know enough. He brushed the tears away with his thumbs. I know that your ex was an idiot who didn't deserve you. I know that you make me want to be worthy of the second chance you've given me. And I know that in 5 days, when we face Marcus, I'm going to fight like hell to make sure you survive this. Even if I don't say that. It's the truth. If it comes down to a choice between your life and mine, then we both live, Lyra interrupted fiercely. We both fight and we both survive, together. Kale smiled, sad and beautiful. Together, he agreed, though they both knew it was a promise neither could guarantee. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon dot, but inside the cabin, wrapped in each other's arms, Lyra and Kale pretended they had all the time in the world. Chapter 9. The claiming the full moon rose like a silver promise over the mountains. Lyra stood in the clearing behind the cabin, her heart hammering against her ribs as she watched Kale prepare the ritual space. He'd spent the day gathering specific herbs wolfsbane for protection, Mountain ash for binding, nightshade for transformation. Things that should have been poisonous, but somehow, in his hands, became sacred. Are you sure about this? He asked for the 10th time, arranging river stones in a circle around the clearing. Once it's done, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me, to my world, for as long as you live. I'm sure. Lyra's voice was steadier than she felt. She wore a simple white dress, the only thing remotely ceremonial she'd found in her grandmother's old trunk. Her feet were bare on the cool grass, and her dark hair hung loose around her shoulders. Cale straightened, and the moonlight painted him in shades of silver and shadow. He'd stripped to the waist, ancient symbols drawn across his chest in ash and blood, his blood willingly given. They marked him as Alpha, as king, as something primal and powerful. The ritual is simple but intense, he explained, moving to stand before her. I'll call on the moon to witness our bond. Then we'll exchange blood yours and mine, mixing together. It will hurt. I'm not afraid of pain, I know. He cupped her face tenderly. But I am. I'm terrified of what this might cost you, of what you're giving up. Lyra covered his hands with hers. I'm not giving up anything. I'm gaining everything. A purpose. A place to belong, you. His eyes glowed brilliant gold in the darkness. Then we began. He stepped back and raised his face to the moon. When he spoke, his voice resonated with power, each word seeming to ripple through the air like visible magic. Luna Argentum, mother of tides. Keeper of secrets, I call upon you to witness this bond. The clearing grew brighter, as if the moon had drawn closer to watch. I am Cale Thornwood, last of the royal bloodline, rightful Alpha King of the Northern Territories. I stand before you with my chosen mate, and I ask your blessing on this union. The wind picked up, swirling around them in a vortex of autumn leaves and starlight. Lyra's breath caught as she felt something ancient and vast turn its attention toward them. Lyra Winters. Cale's gaze found hers across the circle. Will you accept this bond? Will you take my strength as your own? My heart is yours to protect. My life is yours to cherish. Will you stand beside me through darkness and light, through blood and battle, until death parts us or the moon herself fades from the sky? The words felt like a binding, like threads of silver wrapping around her heart. I will, then come to me. Lyra stepped into the circle, feeling the moment she crossed the threshold, a spark of energy that raised every hair on her body. Cale met her in the center, pulling a small ceremonial knife from his belt. Your hand, he said softly. She offered her palm without hesitation. The blade was sharp, the cut quick and clean. Blood welled up, dark against her pale skin. Cale made a matching cut on his own palm, then pressed their hands together. The moment their blood touched, the world exploded into sensation. Lyra gasped as power surged through her, wild and primal, ancient as the mountains themselves. She could feel Cale's heart beating in her chest, his breath in her lungs, his wolf howling beneath her skin. Every emotion he'd ever hidden crashed over her in a wave. Grief for his sister, guilt for his nephews, fear for their future, and beneath it all, a love so fierce and overwhelming it brought tears to her eyes. Hold on to me, Cale growled, wrapping his free arm around her waist as her knees buckled. It's going to get stronger. He was right. The bond deepened, pulling her under like a riptide. She felt his memories flooding into her, running through moonlit forests with his pack, the weight of the crown he never wanted, the moment he'd held his dying sister, the 3 years of lonely exile. And threaded through it all, a golden thread that led back to her, to that stormy night when she'd found him bleeding in the mud. I see you, she whispered, understanding him now in a way that went beyond words. All of you. The king, the brother, the exile. The man who's been running for so long, he forgot what it felt like to be home. And I see you. His forehead pressed against hers, his voice rough with emotion. The woman who thought she was broken when really she was just waiting to find someone worth being whole for. The fighter hiding behind a planner's smile. The brave, stubborn, incredible woman who walked into a storm to save a dying wolf. The moon reached its zenith, and Kale's eyes began to glow brighter. The final part, he said, his voice taking on that dual-tone quality that meant his wolf was close to the surface. I need to mark you. It will hurt, but it will also protect you. No shifter will be able to harm you without facing my wrath. You'll carry my scent, my claim, my protection. Where? He touched the junction of her neck and shoulder gently. Here, over your pulse. So every heartbeat reminds the world that you're mine and I'm yours. Lyra tilted her head, exposing her throat in a gesture of complete trust. Then do it. Kale's control shattered. His form blurred and shifted, not fully wolf, but something in between. His jaw elongated, teeth sharpening, and when he bent to her throat, it was with the reverence of a prayer and the hunger of a predator finally claiming his mate. The bite was sharp and deep. Lyra cried out, pain lancing through her, but Kale's arms held her steady. She felt his wolf satisfaction rumbling through the bond, felt her own blood flowing into his mouth as he sealed the mark with his own essence, and then the pain transformed into something else entirely. Pleasure crashed over her in waves, mingling with the lingering hurt until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Her body felt like it was on fire, burning and rebuilding from the inside out. She was aware of Kale releasing her throat, of his tongue sealing the wound, but distantly, as if it were happening to someone else. Lyra. His human voice cut through the haze. Stay with me. The transformation is almost complete. Transformation? She managed to gasp. You're not becoming a shifter, that's impossible. But the bond is changing you, making you stronger, faster, giving you some of our abilities. He stroked her hair, holding her as she shook. Your senses will be sharper. You'll heal faster than any human. And you'll be able to feel me always, no matter how far apart we are. She clung to him as the changes rippled through her body. It felt like every cell was being rewritten, every nerve ending rewired. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the transformation settled. Lyra opened her eyes and gasped that the world had come alive in ways she'd never imagined. She could smell everything the herbs Kale had burned, the autumn leaves decomposing in the forest, the copper tang of their mixed blood, and underneath it all, Kale's scent, pine and earth and something wild. She could hear the rustle of small animals in the underbrush, the whisper of wind through individual pine needles, the steady beat of Kale's heart synchronizing with her own. Oh my God, she breathed. Is this how you experience the world? Every moment of every day. He smiled, and she could see him so clearly now, every detail of his face, the subtle shifts in his expression. Welcome to our world, Lyra Thornwood. Thornwood? The name sent a thrill through her. You're my mate now. My queen. Whether or not we ever reclaim the throne, that's who you are. He pressed a kiss to the fresh mark on her throat, making her shiver. How do you feel? Powerful, she admitted, flexing her fingers and feeling strength that hadn't been there before. Alive, different. And us? Do you feel the bond? She closed her eyes, focusing inward. There it was, a golden thread connecting her heart to his, pulsing with life and love and unshakable certainty. I feel you. Like you're part of me now, because I am, and you're part of me. His expression grew serious. Tomorrow, we face Marcus, but tonight you're mine, and I'm yours, and nothing can break that. Lyra pulled him down for a kiss, pouring everything she felt into it, gratitude and love and fierce determination. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, she smiled against his lips. Then let's make tonight count.